Before we move into any of the subjects that I mentioned, again, those are suggestions. I'm not tied to any of it, except for sure, I want to make sure we hit family, kind of balancing family life, leadership this year as it stands, deployments, all of those things that come with military service. We've got too much experience on this panel to not hear, you know, what has helped you guys, some of the challenges that you've had, how you've overcome those things. But I do want to pause here in case there's anything else that you've got that you want to make sure you get out there before I do any further moderated topics. Over. So I think if my notes are right, it was Sergeant Johnson had some experience transferring state to state. I know we kind of talked Palace Chase, we talked transferring across components and the different ways that you can continue serving. Transferring state to state isn't a small deal. And kind of what are the lessons that you've taken away and maybe what's the why behind it for you? Over. Maybe we lost Sergeant Johnson. All right, we'll hang on to that question for later. Can somebody just give me a thumbs up that you can hear me? All right, I appreciate you guys. Thank you. All right, so let's talk DSD. We've got a lot of DSD experience amongst the panel. So if anybody wants to talk just their particular, did anybody go through the actual DSD process themselves for any of their first sergeant time? I think we might all be too old hat for that.
I went through it that way.
All right, go ahead. What do you got? What was it like for you? And really just what do you want to offer out to the audience?
So seeing it both ways, I think it's we're still kind of new into the new process of the volunteer for the first sergeant specific stuff. It seems there's a lot more to it by volunteering versus the DSD process, but we're getting through it. So then I was a volunteer DSD. So my chief, I think, did it the right way. He sent out a list. Here are the things that are DSD eligible, and then are you interested in doing anything on this list? I immediately got it. I told him I wanted to do it, and then we worked through the application process, and we went through it several times to make sure that the application process was as best prepared as possible. And I was in Korea at the time, and one of the things that he said that he hadn't seen anybody actually get selected in his tenure there. And he'd been there for a pretty long time. I think 8 years in Korea is a pretty long time for a chief in one place, but glad he was there. So we broke the mold on the DSD, getting people selected. And we actually, for that selection cycle, for myself, we had 4 people selected for 3 different spots. So 2 as MTIs and 1 as a recruiter, and then myself as a first sergeant. So process, like most things in the Air Force that you want to go for, the application is by far the hardest part to get through, but being proactive and reading through all the different guides and mechanisms that you can, and then making sure you understand what it's actually saying before you just slap something on paper and expect a commander to sign it and nominate you for anything. So again, we went through 3 different times from what I can recall, me sending him up the application. We kind of refined a few things, and then he did a good thing that I think anybody in a supervisory position can do. And he wrote me like a push letter that I'm grateful for, that he actually had the commander sign on his behalf. So fairly easy process once we got the ball rolling. A lot of back and forth, a lot of signatures, a lot of career field management type stuff that happens behind the scenes that we kind of hit on, that sometimes the numbers just have to match up to be perfect, but ended up getting released. And the other 3 others went with me, again, for MTI duty and recruiter. The recruiter got selected. One of the MTIs didn't. The other one chose that wasn't the correct course for him, and the numbers didn't work out. So all in all, pretty successful. But again, all 4 of us had to be very, very proactive and stay on top of what we wanted to do.
Really appreciate that. I think that's sound life advice, let alone career advice, or so specific to be DSD advice, but absolutely. And what you put on paper is what goes forward for you, right? And so spending that time polishing that and giving that to people that you trust to give it that hack and that back and forth can be frustrating for folks, and they can think that it's somebody trying to slow roll them. And sometimes it could be. I'm not saying every time somebody has their best interest in mind, but getting through those repetitions of it are critical to making you as competitive as possible and representing you really to a team of folks that may not have any clue who you are or the type of leader you are and the potential you have. So it's speaking for you. So I really appreciate that. I know, Sir Lowery, you've got some experience reviewing those, right? And what that vetting process looks like on the other end, particularly within the MTI community. So if you would speak to that a little bit, I'd greatly appreciate it. Over.
Absolutely. So one of the things that we do is when we get the names from AFPC. So the names come down from AFPC. Once they hit our inbox, they are already cleared by their CFM. So for the MTIs, MTLs, recruiter, they've already passed that threshold. So they've already passed that hurdle. What we do is we actually send them an application, flat application. There's no need for any additional letters of recommendations or anything like that. We send out an application with pre-filled out signature blocks, what you can write your opinions on everybody of, what you think. One of the limiting factors that we have here is we have very specific challenges on top of, some of the other DSD teams. The fact that we have a very stringent mental health screening team, a separate team here, to the point where we have about a 45% success rate of, if we get 100 instructors, names, we're only going to take 45. That's about the going rate that we get every year. So when we talk to senior leaders and they come down probably every couple of months, even now with COVID, they're coming down, we brief them on these process. Some of the biggest factors we run into is individuals that are vectored that should not have been vectored through the DSD, poor PT history, medical problems that were already known. Unfortunately, we get times where, we look at application and we like, oh, the commander flicked a booger on us. They had a quota, they pushed something up. So we make sure we go through very thoroughly. We talk to applicants and make sure that we're getting quality individuals, because what it comes down to is if we get trash in return, if we get trash or individuals, I won't say trash, but individuals that are subpar compared to the normal applicants that we should be getting, that is what commanders and chiefs on the back end will receive, because they are going to make the trainees are going to be a direct reflection. Those airmen are going to be a direct reflection off those instructors. But thankfully, for the most part, we get outstanding applicants. I have people pounding at the door. Luckily, we're not in my office, because if we were in my office with my team, the phone would have probably rang about 100 times since we've been on here. We probably go through about 200 to 300 emails a week of people wanting to come down. How do I do this? What do MFRs do we need to get, for a medical? The big thing is that people we are the waiver authority. So if someone has something in their PT history, we have a conversation with that person. Hey, what happened? What happened here? Because we understand people are athletes, people work out, life happens. So we like to take a holistic approach of the applicants that we're giving. One of the things that we do now is if we have someone that's not accepted on our end, but the local mental health team says that they're good to go, we actually try to work with AFPC to put them back at the pool. Do they have a second vector? Because maybe MTI might not have been their number one choice, but that's what they got vector to. So we provide that member an opportunity to go be an MTL, to go be a recruiter, things like that. When it comes down to it, the DSD process is outstanding, because we do get quality applications. We're meeting our quotas. We're making sure that people are coming down. I've got classes now filled all the way through March of next year, and I'm about to load a bunch more all the way through May, because even with COVID, BMT has not stopped. We've been pushing. Our reserve squadron has stood up completely. They are running 24/7 ops, just like the active duty. I've got guard personnel mixed in throughout BMT. We had a meeting last week with Chief Master Sergeant Williams, who's taken over for the guard, and working on getting a smoother pipeline for our guard individuals to come in. So we are looking to build BMT as a more total force, and through our application process, I think we've done a pretty good job of providing the Air Force new instructors, and also new instructors coming back to their career fields. They're more confident. They're ready to rock and roll. They have so many skill sets and leadership abilities that we home grow here. We have so much curriculum. It's absolutely unreal. If any of y'all ever kind of want to know what we do a little more, if y'all ever come down for the senior leader conference I have, you're more than welcome to come get in contact with me. We can show you around BMT, get you a tour. And also, if you ever want to see, we're actually ginning up our slides because we're actually going to go start recruiting again. I could be more than happy to provide some of those. Just reach out to me. Once we get those finalized, we can send it out, and so you can distribute out to your people so they can kind of understand what they're getting into. Because when it comes down to it, we cap instructors' days at 10 hours. There's no longer sun up to sundown, 6 days a week. And even then, you start getting more time off the later weeks of training because we focus on the family here. Everything is we have our own in-house mental health just for the instructors. Every line squadron has a chaplain, and we really rely on each other to make sure everything's taken care of, families, and that we do a good job, and we making sure that y'all are getting good quality airmen because, life's hard right now, and y'all need individuals to help relieve some of that stress, what your other people are feeling.
I appreciate that. Sorry, Lowery. The insight, right? And for those of us that have watched us move into DSD and kind of the initial churn that created and some of the resistance that created within the active duty community to where we are now. And it matters that we're getting it right. Right? That as we vet and we nominate those folks, it needs to be the right folks for the right reasons, not just because we've got to meet some number on paper and push up, or that we're trying to get somebody out of our unit and just send them somewhere else. That's never the right answer, right? That's my deeply held belief that's never the right answer. To just, unless it's the right answer for that person, they're not a right fit with us, but there is something that is the right fit for them, right? There can be those circumstances, and it matters that we can have this type of dialogue and real talk within our organizations as well. So I appreciate you helping really make us all a little smarter on what that looks like now and what some of those challenges that you're still looking to overcome are.
And we're always available to answer any questions anytime.
Beautiful. And look, there are specific initiatives across the Air Force to make our teams more total force teams, right? And representation of our complete Air Force and all of those components, which is bringing a tremendous amount of diversity of thought and experience, because an existence is different on active duty than it is in the Guard, than it is in the reserves. And whether you're a traditional reservist is a different flavor, depending on how and when you wear the uniform and the status that you're in. And I think it's important that we don't underplay that and just presume that everybody's experience is similar. Anything from the group before we move on to a different subject? Over. Sergeant Johnson, I tried to tag you earlier. I think it was you. I might have my note wrong. But really, I think it's an interesting thing to transfer state to state as a guardsman. I think there's a lot of different whys that can drive that for people, but the process in and of itself can be maybe a little frustrating, confusing, intimidating, all of those things. So I would just appreciate a little bit of perspective on that for our audience. Over.
I know your security forces, when I hear you say over, no matter what form of communication, I love it. Yes, you did get that right. That was a good thing. It is pretty, it's simple, yet you have to stay on it. When you out process out of a base, active duty, my father was active duty Air Force. It's pretty similar as far as out processing and processing. You have to, you have a form, you got to go around, get stuff signed off. But the bottom line is there is a form, and of course I can't remember it off the top of my head, but it is basically, it reminds me of Palace Chase in the sense that you have to get all the way to the top, the tag, so the 2-star general, of the state is going to eventually have to sign off saying, yes, we're releasing you from your contract. That's really what it comes down to. And then you will be getting a new contract with the state that you're transferring to. So that's the simple, the quick way to put that. As far as the personal, what about me stuff though, the important stuff, that to me is the what about the process. So as far as a traditional guardsman, that's all going to be on you. But normally when I think of transferring, I think of a full-time AGR transferring to another unit, because that's what I did, another state, I should say. So but there's also another piece. So I've done that, but I've also was a drill status guardsman, and then I applied for a full-time AGR position in the state of Wyoming. And so I was going from traditional to an AGR. So the process was still the same as far as the forms that I was filling out and having the tag sign off. But I see the chief writing down stuff. I'm already missing stuff. I can already see. Okay, so all right, don't mind her. Okay, gotcha. Okay, so the big stuff is PCSing, and that's where it's gotten kind of strange, because the biggest thing that I really want to emphasize is every state is different, and that's where it gets really weird. Is Reg AF is Reg AF, and that's always a nice thing. Consistency can be nice, right? Not so consistent when it comes to pretty much everything when as far as a state runs everything. So what I can say is when I went to PCS to Wyoming, I already knew that they did not have funds to pay for my PCS. So okay, noted, but you're always going to be provided the dislocation allowance. So that is something you'll want to look into on the finance side. And that is going to be if you're going AGR. Okay, so that's all AGR benefits there. And PCSing is a part of full-time AGR thing. So a traditional move transferring from state to state is not going to be the same. I do want to stress that. But as far as a PCS, normally the states have been able to fund my coworkers and myself if we did a state-to-state transfer. So you'd be getting the same benefits as if you were full-time as far as per diem. When you're doing the travel, you get the travel days, you get paid for mileage and all that stuff. Now, when it again varies from state to state who's handling that. In Idaho, the guard base will not manage it. So I worked with active duty folks at Mountain Home Air Force Base, and they were great, and it was super stressless. And I was able to get all my forms done and get my dislocation allowance and all my reimbursements for all my travel. On the Wyoming side, the base actually managed that. So again, you're just going to have to be communicating. The recruiters are always great points of contact for all that stuff. I've never had any issues other than getting my orders cut. So that's always an adventure, making sure that all that stuff works out. But I think that covers all the state-to-state stuff that gets a little wonky. And if there's ever any questions, you can always hit me up in the global.
So Sergeant Johnson, let me piggyback on you a little bit here. This is Sergeant Kimmel. And so that Air Force Form 1288, that's the form you're thinking about, right? So that's kind of like a routing sheet. So you can look that up on EPUBs, no problem, and find one, AF1288, right? Real simple to find. That front page is all about you. It's got your cover sheet, your cover letter, a bunch of questions at the bottom, your signature saying, hey, this is what I'm going to do. The next page has 3 different spots for endorsements. It's got your losing unit. So if you're going to go from guard to guard or guard to reserve or reserve to reserve, or even act duty to a guard to reserve, right? Where your losing component is. And then, of course, the section has your gaining component. So normally the MPF or the FSS, so wherever you're going to go, is going to fill out that second part. It's going to have the new passcode you're going to be assigned to. It's going to have the new position number, all that information there. And then, of course, that third part down there, if you have to work with a recruiter because you're going from guard to reserve or reserve to guard or act duty to guard or reserve, you're going to have a recruiter help and assist, right? Sergeant Johnson, when you did your guard to guard transfer, did you have a recruiter directly assist you?
Right. So every which way that I've done. So I've gone Idaho to Wyoming and then Wyoming back to Idaho. I had a recruiter on both ends, so helping me streamline that process.
Great. And so a big piece of that too is, reach out to those recruiters. They should always help and assist. That's what we're here for. We're specialists in transitioning. So if we're not helping and assisting, like Sergeant Johnson said, find somebody, because I promise you we'll help you, or at least give you the knowledge. That next piece though too is finding that next position. So how did you find your AGR position when you went from Idaho to Wyoming?
I love that you're on here. Great question. So it's gotten a lot better lately. If you Google full-time AGR guard positions, you can find on the Air Force page, actually, just a list of all officer and all enlisted positions. But some states will fall through the cracks, and especially even just 5 years ago, you would have to Google each state and try to find their specific AG where they had the jobs. And I can tell you that's all different too, right? So there's a Wyoming military department, but then if you go to look for full-time AGR jobs in Idaho, you actually have to go to the Air AGR for Idaho page and then find job opportunities. So definitely, if you Google it, you can find the bulk of them. For sure. And then also I've seen reserve jobs on there as well. So that is how I was able to find it. But also Idaho, I always recommended for the longest time because the Idaho page actually had a link to all the other states' job pages. But as time has gone on, people have left, and then the links have started to get broken, right? So I definitely recommend, again, Googling full-time Air AGR.
I do have a couple comments. Sorry, Kimmel, I can wait.
Oh, please go ahead.
Oh no, I just touching on from the medical side, I have a lot of comments because the frustration comes to my level for people doing state to state transfers. The biggest things that the member themselves can control, they don't take care of. So their shots, their dental, their labs. So I'm in Alaska and I answer a phone call every 2 days from a recruiter in Montana because this gentleman left the state of Alaska on his own. He moved himself because he wants a DSG job elsewhere, but he didn't get his stuff done. So he's not being cleared by us. So we're telling this recruiter, his new unit needs to put him on days or something else needs to happen. He needs to find a dentist, blah, 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 all the things. And this was completely within the member's control. I've seen, in rare circumstances, years ago, I've seen people fly back to Alaska to perform a couple days to get all their stuff straight that they should have taken care of. You know what I mean? And then they leave the unit. And you can out-process virtually. That's not a big deal, but you can't when you're red. There was another circumstance where we're waiting on the state air surgeon to sign him off. Well, it's COVID time, right? And our state air surgeon is a DSG who's a physician. So he's a little busy, you know what I mean? And the priorities of our med group right now are deployers. So we can't be tracking down somebody's dental form when it's 100% on the member, you know what I mean, to take care of that themselves. So that's my advice from the medical side is don't wait until the last minute to do anything. I mean, if you're always green, you're always good to go, right? You can always get on orders. You can always get a TDY or anything like that. And the same goes for when you're transferring units. The other piece is we have people currently undergoing medical evaluation boards. While that's not always a negative thing, you can't switch units when you're under an MEV, and people leave the state and just think everything's magically going to happen, and it's not. I don't have a full-time provider. So you're waiting on a doctor to sign something. You're going to wait till we have drill next. And we haven't had drill for a long time because of COVID. So just those things where, you know, the member has 100% responsibility. They need to take care of it. The other thing I was going to mention, I worked in traffic management. A lot of your guard units do not do household goods. So if you are near an active duty installation or the nearest DoD GIPSO, you should have no problems as long as your orders give you PCS entitlements. But there's not a lot of guard units that do or know how to do household goods. So there's, again, ask, right? Ask all around and get your information squared away.
I'll chime in again. Great point, Chief Stokes. I didn't want to get too in the weeds with the medical because that is in itself its own beast when you're trying to do the state-to-state transfers. Like it does vary again from state to state, but there's been like HIV blood draw. Yeah, you're good for 2 years, but some states will say, no, you actually need to have it within the past 6 months and that kind of thing. So you definitely, the recruiters are always a great help, but also once you start seeing the requirements, you're going to want to know from your gaining unit, what exactly do I need to have as far as checking all those boxes. The other thing I want to point out is I did throw the link down in the bottom to all those full-time AGR jobs.
Yeah, the other big thing. Go ahead. No, please, Chief. Go ahead.
No, that's you nailed it. That's the big thing. A new unit cannot take on a member who's not medically qualified, and certain states it's harder to get into Alaska and Hawaii, and that's because we don't have a lot of resources here to take care of an AGR. So the state does not want to take on someone that they're not fit to take care of. You know, we don't have EFMP up here. There's nothing for miles, you know. So again, the member has to be green. The member has to do all the research and see what they're required to do and what they're entitled to do as well.
Yeah, the best way to think about it, if you're considering a transition from your current status to anything else, right? Think about it like going TDY. Can you go TDY if you don't have your PT done? Probably not. Can you go TDY if your class, you know, on your dental is class 4? Probably not. You know, so look at all your stuff there. Think to yourself, hey, can I go TDY right now? If you've never been TDY, that's fine too. Reach out to your supervisor, reach out to your first sergeant, reach out to your superintendent, you know, because they're going to have good resources for you also. But ask that question to yourself is, what am I missing right now? What do I need to get done right now so I can take care of, so I can go into my next assignment? Because you're basically finding your next assignment for yourself. And that's one of the huge benefits for the Guard and Reserve is that we have the capability as Guard and Reserve that we can transition to anywhere in the United States pretty quickly. I mean, active duty people are tied to one location, but if I want to transition from here to Eielson, I can hop on and start looking for traditional guard positions at Eielson, see out my stuff's good to go, and all of a sudden I can start transitioning that process. Now, if you come back to what's some difficulties, right? It comes back to what you can control, as the Chiefs talked about, and Sergeant Johnston talked about what you can control. And then that next piece is, how do we track these things then, right? So communication, that recruiter in Montana reaching out to the chief all the time, that's awesome for the recruiter. But you yourself can track these things too, and track your stuff through MyPERS and your MyPERS tickets to make sure that everything is working appropriately through its actions. Because sometimes stuff gets held up because COVID, because the unit wherever you're trying to go to or leaving from just got activated, and now you're not the mission priority, the mission is, you know, and you're going to get pushed back to the back burner for a couple days, a couple weeks even, and then hop back on it. But if you can reach out there and see, hey, listen, I just haven't out processed because your GTC is still overdue from your last TDY. You know, those simple things that you can check into and ask and look at, and ask for your out processing checklist wherever you're going before. Educate yourself before. How do I basically separate from this unit to go to a different unit? It doesn't matter if you're going guard to guard, guard to reserve, reserve to guard, active duty to reserve or guard. Though all these processes we're talking about the same way. Take care of your stuff. Take care of you, because again, you control your future.
Appreciate that dialogue, really helpful. And I'm sure that there are particular questions folks are having right now as they watch the video. I'll make sure that when we post the video details on all the different forums that we have, that we include contact information for those of you that are comfortable leaving that. I'd appreciate that very much. What I'd like to do on the subject of taking care of yourself, right, and taking care of business, but also taking care of yourself as that whole person and your family, and just balancing everything that is serving. Chief Schaefer, I know, mentioned She's mill to mill, chief to chief, if my notes are right, which is a whole nother level. Kids, virtual learning, right? Just a life of service. And how do you find the balance? Kind of what are some of the things you've learned along the way, maybe through maybe the hard way, right? As it is that you'd like to leave to us and to folks listening from home. Over.
Awesome. That's opening a Pandora's box there. So I'll briefly touch on a few things, and I would say that my name is Diane Schaefer, and I am on the Global. And if you have follow-up questions, I am an open book, so feel free to reach out. So I have been in for 23 years. I've actually been married 3 times. My first husband was a military member as well as me. My second husband was a civilian federal law enforcement, was a single parent in the Air Force for almost 8 years. And I married my husband, my current husband, as a chief while he was a chief and I was a chief. We got married as chiefs. So, single parent, mill to civilian, mill to mill, the gamut. I have 4 children. My oldest is 21 and my youngest is 2. So you want to talk about childcare costs? My childcare, I've paid childcare for 21 years straight without a break. 2 of my kids are in virtual learning right now. It's my 10-year-old, and well, I shouldn't say 2 because I have a college student that's in virtual learning, but that's different. And my 2-year-old is in daycare still with COVID. I have my oldest has suffered with depression and anxiety throughout her teen to adult years. So that's a struggle. My 18-year-old son has struggled with ADHD throughout his educational experience. So that's been a struggle. EFMP program, getting support, consistent support is a challenge that I'm very familiar with. I actually wrote some notes as far as the things, if you ask me as a parent and a mill-to-mill member, what is most important to me as an Air Force member, it's 1, childcare. I'm stationed at Creech. I'm 55 miles away from Nellis, and I'm 35 miles away from Las Vegas. So we use the Child Care Aware NACRA process to pay for our childcare. It does not cover annual registration fees, which is $150 a year per kid. I've got people that have 6 kids. Now imagine you're a tech sergeant with 6 kids and you're paying $150 a year fee every year. It's a huge issue that we engage on. We are the largest users of NACRA. We are also the largest users of the YMCA program for fitness. So we're huge advocates for how those programs are for maybe smaller units that encounter problems, because we encounter them on a large scale. So that goes into that family support challenges I've seen across the board. If you use the YMCA program or you ever have, holy nightmare, right? You get it, but you have to go 8 times a month or you lose it, 8 times a week or you lose it forever. So if I'm stationed at Creech right now and I mess up and I miss my scope and I miss a visit and I don't fall in the amount of visits I'm required for a month, I lose it. I PCS, I come back 7 years later, I'm still in the system, I'm not eligible to use it. So it's some of the challenges our families face that we have to work on. Same thing with the quality of medical and EFMP. I have a member of my unit that has a child who is autistic and sees a different provider every time he goes in. Logic tells you that child is not going to succeed. So when I have military members whose spouses decide to move away from their military member and move closer to family and buy their forever house when they still have 8 years left in service because they can't take care of their family with consistent care, that's a challenge to me that we really have to address. And then COVID, right? So the reality is that we cannot expect everybody serving in the military right now to give it's not 100%. We don't ever ask our military members for 100%. We ask them somewhere between 150 and 200% on a day-to-day basis. And we need to realize that they're the teacher, they're the daycare provider, and maybe 100% is asking a little much right now. So we ask them to give it everything they can and take balance for themselves. So part of that is the Air Force is not very good at resetting expectations when budgets are reset and manpower is reset. And so I really encourage people to make the Air Force a career. You have to make yourself a priority. If you give more, they will take more. That's like any job, right? The more you give, the more they're going to expect and the more they're going to take. So you have to set those boundaries of what of your personal life you're going to allow your job to take. And then that's when sometimes you have to reevaluate and look at, is that AGR job? Is that guard job? Is that civilian job? Is that better for me and my family right now than what I'm doing? And that's great. If the Air Force and continued service is not meeting the needs of your family, you want to change something before you don't have them anymore. Because sometimes you get to the point where it's too late. And I've been there in my career where I was jobbing it, and then next thing you know, I'm sitting with a child in the hospital who has, made an attempt on their life, and I wasn't there. And so you don't want to get to that point and realize that you've been prioritizing things wrong, and it'll happen. You're going to let job get away from you, and then you got to go back and be like, wait, where were my priorities? Job is not everything. So that's the biggest thing. I know I covered a lot of things, but it's because sometimes we think our leaders don't know what we're going through. They're out of touch. I often live paycheck to paycheck too. Every time my PCS, my ex-husband filed for custody, and that was expensive. And yet I continued to serve and I continued to pay that. One of those was $60,000. So, you continue to serve and you look at the cost. People don't wear the cost of their service on their face. It's in hearing their story. So if you want to know what they paid to continue to show up every day, you got to talk to them and then make sure that the benefits are still there, that there's someone still in their corner fighting for them so that the payment that they made is worth it. And that would be the challenge I give you from your advocacy is fleshing out those problems and then saying, hey, I don't care where you are in the world. If you're going through what I've gone through and you need to talk to someone and you don't think anyone's listening, email me. I'm right here.
I appreciate you so much, just for finding a way to put all of that in a relatively short amount of time, for one, right? But man, communicating expectations isn't just something that goes between a subordinate and a supervisor, right? That needs to happen across relationships. That needs to happen in all of the different roles that we're a part of. I love what you said, and I took it down. I'm going to take it with me. Resetting expectations when you look at a budget, right? When you reset manpower, when you reset things, and communicating those expectations at home and in your professional life, and setting boundaries. And I would offer that as we continue to move into higher ranks, into certain positions, and we've got some former first sergeants on the line as well, sitting first sergeants on the line, we move into certain spots and as a chief even, where we don't recognize that we've allowed those boundaries to completely dissolve, and maybe our own expectations of ourselves. And so that internal dialogue and balancing that off of people that you trust, balancing that off of people that know you and are willing to say the things that you need to hear, so that you can set those expectations for yourself that are reasonable for you and your family as well, and set those boundaries. So what I would just offer from the bottom of my heart is that we all have to do that. Right? That is a constant process of serving, no matter how you serve, which component you serve, or what rank you're serving in. We've got to constantly do that so that we're as well and as healthy as we can be to keep doing what we love and giving so much of ourselves. So on that note, I would say thank you. You've all given about 2 hours here, and I greatly appreciate it. I don't want to corner anybody into closing remarks, but I definitely want to take the last few minutes we have here and just kind of let us go around the horn with anybody that wants to give any final thoughts. I know we didn't even get really anywhere near the level of depth of the experience that's in the room right now, but my word I give to you is this is going to be the first of many opportunities for us to link really with each other and with our larger AFSA family and community. With that, and just my appreciation and thanks, I want to open the floor. Absolutely, Chief. I see you, and I'd like to give you the floor first as a dear friend and lifelong mentor of mine. Any remarks that you have, and then we'll open up the floor.
I want to thank you for doing this. This is an extraordinary group of leaders here if you were walking the halls in the Pentagon and passed a 3-star right now, he would probably call this a critical mass, and a group that bears considerable watching. But this is an extraordinary group of people. As you get, I have gone through a full military career and longer than that now since my military career, and many, many years with AFSA. And as you get toward the end of your life and you start to look back at the important things, you realize that the things that we have in common are our humanity. And that's the extraordinary thing about the Air Force Sergeants Association, is that's what it focuses on. Its primary focus is not weapon systems, and it's not R&D dollars and hard things. It's people, and recognizing that that this group of people and those that you represent are often taken for granted. They become part of budget drills. They don't have a union to represent them in most cases, and you need someone that can speak for you, and this association does that. And so I think it's great, Jess, that you've put together a collection of people that can speak for all of these exceptional citizens who have stepped up to donate, to devote a significant number of years of their lives to making freedom possible for everyone. I know that sounds hokey, but I mean that very sincerely, that this is very, very important what you're doing. The other thing that I wanted to say was, and it's nice to see Matt Schwartzman on here, because his task right now, even though he's probably the youngest in this virtual room, in a way he's like our parent in that he represents us every day on Capitol Hill. The other part of the equation, though, is that this association is unique among all associations in that the tasking that Matt is given to take to the Hill comes from you. So please take the time and have your people take the time to communicate with our legislative team. Please take the time when you get the call for survey inputs to let our teams know how they can best represent you and your people. Please encourage people to do that, and please participate yourselves. There's a lot more that you can tell our headquarters about those serving every day that our headquarters needs to know than they will be aware of on a day-to-day basis. So please take the time to do that. And Jess, always a pleasure to see you, and you and I have been part of a family for many years now, as some of the other folks on the screen feel the same way. But thank you very much all for participating in this, and for making our military services work through your dedication and your devotion.
Appreciate you, Chief. I love you.
Love you too.
I would like to open up the floor for any closing remarks. I'll start with Mark Hogan because he wasn't able to jump on earlier at the beginning of the call. I recognize the name right away. He's actually the IMA to my position as Security Forces Manager up here at Elmendorf. My God, I don't know how I would do what I do without him. He's an incredible leader and really just an amazing human being. With that, Mark, what do you got, brother?
Well, hey, welcome. I'm sorry I'm late, that I came to the meeting late, but obviously you can see by the uniform that we're extremely busy down here in Los Angeles. But I just want to say thank you, Jess, for what you do in regards to what you do for our Air Force and for our young airmen. But this organization here, this AFSA organization, I've been a part of the Air Force now for 31 years. So it's been a huge responsibility. And, you know, we look back at our people and we say, what's our greatest infrastructure? And infrastructure, you know, some people say it comes down to the iron that's on the airfield, but the infrastructure comes down to us. It's us, the people, it's us, the leaders. Is that the main infrastructure is the number one thing that makes this Air Force and any military organization, which makes it power through. But Jess, thanks for letting me have a moment. If you guys need anything, it's mark.hogan.1@us.af.mil. Again, if you need some inside information, please reach out to me. Also, Jess, great to see you as always. And And all of you, thanks for joining in. I apologize for coming on late, but thanks for your time and thanks for having me speak. I appreciate it.
And I'll leave it open to other closing remarks. I just ask that if you've got some feedback for me for the next iteration of this, stick around for once the recording closes so I can take notes away. I greatly appreciate it. And I'll open the floor. Over.
So I just wanted to say this was my first time joining and meeting pretty much all of you, and it's been an awesome opportunity. As a first sergeant, you know, they say, you know, mission first, people always. And so when we talk about this, like we're not just recording something for someone to listen to later. We're building relationships, and we're going to build on those. Like we now know who the best recruiter in the AFRC is, who's going to answer all of our questions. And, you know, we know DSD, and we've built on all of this stuff that like, we're going to remember this. And the next time, you know, you need something from the Pentagon, you're like, oh, there's that girl. And, you know, she works at the Pentagon. So I just wanted to say thank you for including me, because this was a great opportunity.
Yeah, I'd like to say something. If I'd like to throw out my org box for the IMA questions that come out. So I'm going to plug that real quick. It's arpc.hqrio.careerassistance@us.af.mil. I am open to any conversation. I'm really passionate about what I do for this program. I'm an advocate for it. Like I said before, I was a first sergeant, and I'm a career advisor, which I call first sergeant light. So it's kind of neat to get people excited about the program. One thing I will close with is please push the development team process through your AFSCs or your career functional managers. I know Chief Stokes is out there on her head. I've been on boards with her, so at ARPC when I worked up there. So please push the development teams. It's great for your enlisted and the officers that you work with to really hear and get vectored from their career functional managers and their leaders. It's a process that's underused, and we're trying to get better at it. And it's something I'm also got a lot of experience in, so you can ask me about that too. So thank you for having me as part of this, and I think everybody's doing a great job, and it was an honor to be able to talk to you all. Thank you.
One last thing that I'd like to say, first of all, thank you, Jessica, for including me in this conversation. It was an honor and a privilege to be able to brief, you know, each and every one of you, and to all of the future YouTube watchers who may tune in. Just to piggyback off of one thing that Jim said, Chief Lockovic, and that is that our department's legislative platform survey for 2021 to 2022 is currently live. It's on our Legislative Action Center, which can be viewed at hqafsa.org under the Take Action subtab, under the tab that's labeled as legislation. I've put my contact information, my email actually, and the email for the military and government team as a whole in the chat box. So if there's anything that you'd like to reach out to me personally on, or any legislative questions you may have for the team at large, please feel free to send us an email. And I would like to end by just saying that if I am a parent, I do try my best to be the cool parent. So let me end with that. But like I said, if anybody has any additional questions they'd like to ask me, it could be about anything, any specific legislative initiative that you think you'd like to see the team pursue, or any questions that you may have on how to best get from point A to point B to navigate the legislative process successfully. Please reach out to the team. As Chief Lockovic said, the survey, to a certain degree, is a unique tool because it allows our members to have their voices be heard and actually drive the action items that our legislative team will act upon. So any additional questions, please feel free to reach out. Take the survey, share it, and get others to take it as well. Because we especially, it's actually necessary for our team to hear directly from the field on these types of matters. So thank you very much. But with that, I will yield the remainder of my time. Thank you.
To just piggyback on both Chief Lockovic and on Matt, from the Air Force Sergeant Association perspective, we've got a great cross section of folks here today, and that's what the association is. It's a great cross section. We are unique, as Jim said earlier, and I think as we go into the new year, 2021, we have outstanding opportunities to grow in our advocacy, grow across the full spectrum: Guard, Reserve, active duty, retirees, veterans, and particularly on our family members. So please take what we've done today and carry it back into your workplaces and wherever it is you congregate at, because we have a great opportunity to really do some fantastic things for people like you. Because all of us have raised our hand once, multiple times, and as we noted in some of our comments about basic training and things, and shout out to the TIs. I went to my son's graduation a couple of years ago now, and it's awesome. It is awesome. And last year we had the AFSA International Conference, or International Committee, and we went down to the graduation as well, and was blown away. And everything that everybody does every day is just so awesome. So please take it back to your folks. Build our association up. Social media, however it is, you to contact everybody. We just have a tremendous opportunity right now. And thanks, Jess, for leading us. And you want to do it again, we're more than happy to host it for you. And this has been
that's for sure going to happen. So what I'd like to do is one more open up to the floor. If there's any closing remarks that you want to be on the video for folks that tune in later to watch, and then end the recording and just chat for a few minutes about kind of how I see the future of this and where I think that we can go with it.
I do just want to say one thing, and if anybody has watched this far, that you do have a voice, and I want you to know that challenge that you're facing, that you think that you're all alone and nobody else is experiencing the hardship like you, that there's someone else out there who's facing that same hardship and thinks the same thing. So if you have the courage, be the voice, get involved in organizations like this and others, and start to talk about your challenge so that you can bring everybody else that's facing similar or the same challenges into the fold and really make change. Because if we all think we're out there and that this problem just pertains to us and we keep it to ourselves and we just plug away, all of these little problems that everybody's sharing are just going to stay there in the bottom, and they're never going to filter up to the top. So have a voice, get involved, make yourself heard. We will listen, and someday change will happen.
Well, on that note, I think it's a beautiful way to end it. So if you would, Chief, stop our recording, and then I'll just have you guys stick around a few minutes to kind of talk through what I think can happen from here.